kicking, and they end up getting them out of this enclosure, and it takes them hours to finally round them up and get them back.
What are you doing, Hazel?
They're unharmed. But
what are you doing? Hey!
It's almost impossible to get even one bull into that small of an enclosure. It would take hours to maybe be successful in doing that. To get 4 bulls into that enclosure was pretty much impossible. And to do it when they basically were calm after they were in there was also somewhat impossible. And it was important to note that Terry saw when he looked in the window that the only trailer was
don't be grumpy.
It had not been undone. In fact,
don't be
the cobwebs at the corner where the opening basically formed with the sides of the trailer, they were still intact, like it had not opened. It made no sense how those bolts got in there. And so the NIDS researchers come over, and they can't make sense of it either. Well, upon further investigation, the NIDS researchers found that the bars of the corral that held the bulls, a section of it had been highly magnetized. And so while they're doing this research, trying to figure out if magnetic fields has anything to do with the strange occurrences at the ranch, 2 of the NIDS researchers were on the outskirts of the property using their compass to look for magnetic fields, and they started smelling, they both reported smelling that horrible metallic, like rotting smell that other people had reported smelling anytime they saw that large wolf creature. And when they started smelling it, their compass started to flitter and then pointed away from north towards wherever the smell was. And they remember thinking that they felt like they were being watched. And it went on for a few moments, and their compass didn't waver. It was aimed in the direction of the smell, and they're both on opposite sides, pointing in the same direction. And then at some point, the smell stops, and they stop feeling anxious, and the north arrows go back to the way they should have been. And then one of the most terrifying of all of the paranormal occurrences that happened at Skinwalker Ranch happened at the very end of 1997. 2 NIDS researchers were up on a ridgeline overlooking the homestead. Every night it became commonplace to basically position NIDS researchers all over the property to basically be on the lookout for weird things that are happening. And these 2 researchers are up on this ridge, kind of obscured and hidden, and they see this orange orb take shape right near the homestead. And one of them had an infrared goggles, and so he looks down at the orb, and you can clearly make out that it's this oval-shaped opening that sounded an awful lot like what Terry had seen on his porch when he saw that humanoid creature crawling out of the portal into his property. Well, these 2 researchers are looking at this portal, and they see the same thing. They see this black human-like creature crawling out of this orange portal onto the ground, and then it starts running up the hill towards them.
This isn't a dream. This is really happening.
The stories were true.
Running up the hill towards them. And they were like frozen with fear. They start smelling that horrible, rotting, metallic smell as this big, human-like creature bounds up the mountain, and they can hear the shale. It runs up, and it goes right past them. About 30 feet away from them, they're looking at it, and it barrels past them at a full sprint up into the mountainside. The following year, in 1998, the activity on the ranch declined significantly. All they had was the occasional strange lights here and there, but for the most part it was done. And in fact, even though NIDS remained on the property, by 2004, the research just wasn't amounting to anything, so they pulled the plug. They did have footage of a number of the lights that were seen, but again, no one's going to take a picture of some random lights and say, oh, there you go, proof. You know, they demonstrated that there were magnetic fields, and they had images of these calves that would reappear after looking like they'd had surgery done to them. They had hundreds of eyewitness reports. They had all this information, but none of it was really definitive proof, which was very frustrating to Robert Bigelow, to Terry and
Toru!
And the way they
don't attack him.
They felt like they were dealing with an entity or a group of entities that were just consistently one step ahead of them. That they could catch glimpses of what they were doing, but it was never enough to really understand what was happening. They never felt like they were in control. It was always clear that this entity or these entities were in control of the situation, and they never were in a good position to really record hard data or get good footage. Not to mention, this is 1998, this is the late 90s. No one just had an iPhone and would pull out and snap pictures. You had real creatures of light and some of the animals that have been mutilated. There's been numerous books put together by some of the people that were a part of this mixed research team, and to this day they believe that what they saw was a result of some paranormal activity. And to this day, many people believe that this is one of the most credible instances of paranormal activity occurring. So I'd love to hear what you think in the comments, whether you think this is a total fact or a total hoax or somewhere in the middle. I'd love to hear about it in the comments.
There you go. It's behind you, buddy. It's behind you. This is a good video. He's so cute.
He did a good job with that one, though, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's just a really good storyteller. I'm glad I came across this channel.
Riley, he's like the most popular YouTuber on YouTube right now.
Is he really?
Yeah. You didn't know that?
Yeah, he
Look
does
at how-
have 5.18 million subscribers.
Yeah. And that was in not very much time, too. It's like amazing how quickly he got a following. But literally all he's done is just taken stories that are from all the scary storytelling podcasts. Like literally every story I've heard him tell, I've heard on a scary story podcast before. Like...
Yeah, but also he just does a really good job. I mean, he shows pictures and stuff, so I feel like that's what's different
But
from podcasts.
good on him. He's, in my opinion, he's kind of just taking advantage of the trend of people liking scary stories.
I mean,
This is such a good video. I got Hazel eating, and then Toru's just sitting in a box in the background. Riley.
Yeah.
So far it's 7 minutes. Full battery.
January 18th, 1989. I died.
Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, and today we're going to look at three
Right
stories
now.
that demonstrate that. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel because that's all we do, and we upload 2 or 3 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please invite the like button to come to the cinema with you to see a movie they really want to see, but then proceed to talk incessantly to them throughout the entire movie, and about halfway through, spoil the ending. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's stories.
Riley, I don't want to empty out this cauliflower.
Just do it, man.
Can I just throw away the whole container?
No!
Can you do it?
Fine.
Or can I like light some incense after doing it or
In
something?
October
Yeah,
of
that's
2014, a
Or just light a
35-year-old
candle.
woman who we'll call Olivia met her husband for lunch at a restaurant in Western
There's the
New
one
York.
that
The
you
couple
like.
had not originally planned
I'll just light
to
it for
stay
like
at the
2
restaurant
seconds.
for very long,
Okay.
but one thing led to another. They were having a nice time, and before long, it was 6 p.m. and they had been there for 6 hours. And over those 6 hours, both of them had had a lot to eat, lots of bread and pasta and cakes and all sorts of stuff, and they had had some alcohol, but not very much. Olivia had been careful to only have 4 drinks over those 6 hours because she wanted to be able to drive. And her husband similarly limited his drinking so he'd be safe to drive. And so after they got the check and they paid for their meal, they both hopped in their respective cars and they began driving home. As Olivia was making her way home, she unfortunately got a flat tire, and so she pulled off to the side of the road and she called roadside assistance. As she was waiting for help to show up, another motorist happened to drive by and they misunderstood what was happening. They saw Olivia standing outside of her car with the tire popped off and they thought she'd been in an accident. And so they called the police and reported it. And so the police show up. A few minutes later, they pull up right behind Olivia. And when they get out, they ask her, are you okay? Do you need any help? And she would say, oh no, I just had a flat tire. I'm totally fine. Thank you for stopping. But the police, as they're listening to her speak, they see her eyes look kind of glassy and glazed over like she's drunk.
Nice.
And as she was speaking, they could have sworn she was slurring
Angry
her words. And so they said, hey ma'am, have you been drinking tonight? And she would tell them that, well, yeah, I have had a few drinks, but only 4 over the last 6 hours, and I don't feel drunk at all. That has nothing to do with the situation right now. I'm not drunk. But the police were not buying it, and so they put her through a series of field sobriety tests that she managed to get through, but she struggled with enough that it sent up some red flags. And so they made her blow into a breathalyzer. A breathalyzer is a device that uses your breath to register how much alcohol is in your system, also known as your blood alcohol content, or BAC for short. BAC is scored as a percentage out of 100, and while no one should ever get behind the wheel of a vehicle if they are impaired, it is the case that in America you are allowed legally to operate a vehicle if your BAC is 0.08% or lower. For reference, if a 160-pound female consumed about 3 alcoholic drinks, maybe a little bit more, in the course of an hour, she would most likely have a 0.08% BAC. If that same 160-pound female were to consume, let's say, 8 alcoholic drinks over the course of an hour, she would definitely not be allowed to legally operate a vehicle because she would be very, very drunk. Her BAC would have spiked to 0.2%, which would put her in the range where she would most likely have alcohol
What are you doing,
poisoning,
Hazel?
and eventually she would most likely lose consciousness.
What are you doing,
if
buddy?
This same 160-pound female were to consume 13 alcoholic drinks over the course of an hour,
Did you
her
move
BAC
the
would
speaker?
jump all the way up to
It's right here.
0.4%, where she's not just drunk and unable to
You hear
operate
it?
a vehicle.
Yeah, that's
At that level,